Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 73 of the Coffee Squad podcast. Today, we are talking about convergence in security, in the security realm. So, Will, how's
Jake,
your voice?
what's that?
How's your voice doing?
I don't know. I think I got some allergy or something kicking on. I got some of that in my throat. So trying to get that cleared.
What was that again? Some what?
You heard me.
That was cool.
I cannot confirm or deny what I said.
Wow. Well, at least we got it recorded, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're drinking some tea. You know, what are you doing to help your throat, man? Was it like honey and
Coffee?
juice?
I don't really drink tea. I'm not from the UK, so I kind of stick to coffee.
Oh, way to be all inclusive, bud. Way to be all inclusive.
Well, you know, they love
their UK brothers right now.
They love the tea, you know. So that's just not me. I don't even like sweet tea or anything like that. I'm not Southerner. I'm not, I'm not a fan of tea.
Man, you got a lot of hate in your heart this morning, man. I like
It's not hate. It's just, apathy.
Gotcha. So, convergence. I think it's a great topic, especially, I think for years, physical security, cybersecurity, it's kind of been disjointed. Cybersecurity guys have done their thing. The physical security guys have done something else. And we're starting to see a lot more of convergence and seeing the importance of convergence in the security industry. So today I just kind of want to talk about the importance of security convergence and why that's important to organizations, businesses, companies, government, everything, anything that's in the security industry. Where we work at Freedom, we kind of have a little diagram talking about the human and the physical and the technical side of security. And really what the diagram depicts is the importance of convergence. So,
well, if you think about it, physical security, some form or another, has been around since essentially the beginning of man. I mean, they were protecting their families or their fire or their food or whatever. So some form of physical security has been around forever. Whereas cyber security has only been around since the 70s or 80s, I guess. Well, I guess maybe the 60s. Some of the in the 60s with the space program, but
I would even say like cyber security was an afterthought.
Oh, absolutely.
It was creating, it was creating the Internet of Things. And then as more and more things came online, the threat, the bad actors were out there, exploiting that. And so, and now, I think I just got an update last night on my Apple phone. Hey, there's security update.
Yep.
So, if there's a way to exploit it, it doesn't matter if it's physical or cyber or human.
People are going to try to do it.
It's bad actors are going to exploit it, and you brought up space and, me and my ADHD, and I'm going to go off a little bit here, but, space security, that might be the next thing that we see. Who knows? We
already have the Space Force,
Yeah. And so,
do you remember Space Ghost, that cartoon Space Ghost?
No.
That's what I think of when I hear of the Space Force. But yeah, anyways, go ahead.
But yeah, so Space Force and the NASA and these private industries, satellite communications, and state-on-state actors now knowing that, it's through the Internet of Things, through these satellites, through everything else. But that's the, I'm just hypothetically and throwing spaghetti on the wall, seeing what sticks. But, maybe that's the next security domain out there.
I'm sure it is. I mean, with technological advancement and especially with, cyber advancement, there's going to be more things to protect, more vulnerabilities exposed, I think, because at this point in our cyber life, we are creating faster than we're protecting. I think, like you said, cybersecurity is more of an afterthought. And like you said, there are bad actors out there. And as Alfred told Batman, you don't get this, I know. Some men just want to watch the world burn. So
I've seen Batman. I actually like Batman.
Okay.
So thank you, Will. Thanks. So convergence, what is it? I think, we went to CISA. I think they have a really good definition. I think that's a definition we should work off today as we talk about it. So
Also, security convergence refers to the convergence of two historically distinct security functions, physical security and information security. We usually refer to that as cyber, right? With enterprises, both are integral parts of a coherent risk management program. Security convergence is motivated by the recognition that a corporate assets are increasingly information-based. Convergence is formal collaboration between previously disjointed security functions. Organizations with converged cybersecurity and physical security functions are more resilient and better prepared to identify, prevent, mitigate, and respond to threats. Convergence also encourages information sharing and developing unified security policies across security divisions.
So I think that's, the last part, right? Organizations with converged physical and cybersecurity functions are they're more resilient. And then the bigger thing is they're better prepared to identify, prevent, mitigate, and respond to threats. And, under the response plan to threats, I also think it's having that backup plan too. I put under the respond to threats. When your physical and cyber guys have those contingency plans in place, let's face it, bad guys don't have to get it right once. Security guys have to get it right 100% of the time. You said that last week. So the chances, are a lot higher in favoring the bad guys. So having that contingency plan and that responding to threats plan in action, I've seen, throughout my career is huge. And then also, your last little sentence there of information sharing and developing unified security policies across the board. That's huge. Usually, again, I think it's getting better. A lot of the organizations that I've consulted for, but seeing the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, and the Chief Security Officer, you're starting to see that blend more. And you're, where they used to be on either two different floors or two separate offices, now the teams are actually working together. And I'm seeing a lot Chief Security Officers being IT guys, former CISOs as well. So companies kind of use them together sometimes. I still think it's important to have a physical security guy, manager, and information security manager, whatever that title may be, with many organizations. You don't find too many cybersecurity guys that also have a physical security background. There are some out there. I know Avert Channel, Bart Holzer is one of them. He's a CPP, and he's also a phenomenal cybersecurity guy. But he mainly practices on the cybersecurity realm. So.
Well, Ray's pretty well versed on both sides, I'd say.
Very well. And again, so I would say those are more anomalies than the norm out there.
Well, I think with the increased advancement in technology and the more physical security kind of relies on, especially with access control type devices, and camera systems, stuff like that, is more technological. It's only natural that they would kind of converge into one umbrella that both sides should be talking to each other.
It's interesting. You mentioned that when I was over in Jordan, worked for a client over there, for lack of a better term, the CISO there in Jordan at this multi-million-dollar facility, they didn't have a physical security manager there. Didn't help him. So he placed cameras where he thought they should be placed. His server rooms were server rooms. He had badge readers for access control, but he didn't use the badge readers. So he just used a key and a lock, which is okay. There wasn't a camera recording entrance, who's going in, who's going out. There wasn't any digital footprint going in there. And then because of the nature of the facility as a 24-hour kind of 365 facility where people are coming and going, you have government agencies coming in and out of their training as well, from different nationalities. He put a key under a rock at one of his server bank rooms, his backup site. So if he wasn't there, his assistant or someone else who needed to access that room could get there. So
the good old key under the rock,
So we're at the door and he's like, "Oh man, I left my key wherever." And he's like, "Oh, I had a key over here." He's like, "You guys just stand here." I'm like, "Okay." And then he realizes, he comes back, unlocks the door, and he kind of realizes the mistake he made. And I was like, "Hey, bud, probably not a good idea, man. You know, if you have badge readers, use your badge readers. You know, there's a place for key and locks. So I'm not saying don't use a key and a lock. I'm just saying there's a time and a place for everything. And if you had a physical security guy there working with them, wicked smart guy, super IT tech, like wizard, right? But if you had a physical security guy there helping them with the physical security, and that's why they hired us to help them, you know, it could prevent a lot of issues, especially if you're, you know, a major corporation or an international corporations where you have people coming and going all the time. It's one of those things where I think convergence is huge, and having that team work together.
Well, I mean, this kind of falls under it, but I was reading an article about this happened years ago. A Chinese national came over and said he was doing some research and wanted to look at the power grid infrastructure and stuff like that at a company. And they said, okay, or they called the office, some office for the government, and they didn't know what was going on, the State Department, but, you know, they're trying to maintain their relations. So they're like, yeah, everything's good. You know, checked his ID and whatever. And he was there for weeks. And then it kind of got up the chain of command that somebody from China was over there looking at our infrastructure and said, I don't know anything about that. So they called him up and they said, yeah, you guys can look at anything. They're like, all right, well, come in 2 days. Well, that next day he was on a plane back to Beijing, and they have no idea what kind of information he got. So my guess is that was more of a physical security issue. But if they had contacted each other and had systems in place to prevent any external hacking, that's where the cyber stuff would come in handy, right? So
yeah, and so
that's kind of scary because, you know, you look at what happened with our gas system. Can you imagine the power grid going down for a couple of days? People would go poof.
And we've mentioned this before. I mean, we had why can't I think of his name right now? We're talking about critical infrastructure and securing it, and what a threat, what a target that is. We know it's a target. The U.S. government knows it's a target. A lot of your 3-letter agencies knows it's a target, and so you know, it goes back to human, physical, and technology all at the same time. So knowing who you're hiring, knowing who you're giving access control to, knowing the cyber threats that are out there. So, and then the physical threats. So, you know, I would say with convergence, usually most things start with people. Machines usually don't act up on themselves. You know, it's someone who's manipulating that machine, touching that machine, doesn't have access or isn't authorized to use it, is plugging something in or is doing it remotely. And then all your wires that are going into these buildings.
Well, there's this cartoon I like. I've shared it on the Facebook page before. It's, you know, it's in a boxing ring and it's the announcer. And it's like, in this corner, we have cyber, you know, cyber antivirus, VPN, you know, cyber, all this protection from the cyber. And it said, in this corner, we have Dave from accounting, you know, and it's just showing you that most of the issues that come into your any type of security really is going to be human error.
Yep. And then, you know, I would say technology just facilitates it a lot faster and can hide it. So I know you had a great example of Equifax, of kind of how they help prevent a major attack. You kind of want to talk about that story a little bit?
Yeah, so this was more of a preventative, and then they helped the FBI track him down, right? So they brought in this guy to kind of do the convergence, security convergence, to bring together the disparate pieces of security, including their physical information security under one roof. Didn't take long for the reorganization to bear fruit. About 3 months into his tenure, a large identity theft ring began hitting credit reporting agencies, was attempting to penetrate Equifax's networks. So his team went to work and they set up a plan, mapped out the bad guy's architecture, and they worked closely with the FBI. They were able to pinpoint the company where the breach was taken. It was an intermediary company, a former help desk employee. There's your human error and insider threat, really. At the intermediary company had stolen user codes and passwords and sold them to more than a dozen foreign nationals in the New York City area. So the U.S. Attorney's Office was able to arrest the culprits, and they stopped putting a stop to what is said the largest identity theft ring in the country. And that was, you know, that was a few years ago. I don't know if there have been other ones since, but it was over 30,000 identities were stolen. This isn't like online hacking. This was like Equifax, like user code and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different than what we normally hear of when we think about user names hacked. As a pure example of the benefit of having everything under one umbrella, I had the ability to bring the data and fraud folks and everyone else together and come up with a cohesive strategy. So Yeah, if he didn't have everybody's authority, if he didn't have everybody working together on one page and talking about it, who knows how long it would have been going on, or even if it would have been caught. I guess sooner or later, hopefully they'd be caught. But if they hadn't been working together and talking to each other and sharing, hey, I'm seeing this. What are you seeing? Who knows how long it could have happened?
I think that's huge. That point right there is bringing that team together. And that's what convergence, in my opinion, if I had to break it down simply, it's a team effort between the CISO and the CSO shop, or your IT and your physical security guys. And what that also brings is different points of views, right? You as a law enforcement officer, me as a military guy, we have different points of views when it comes to physical security training and other stuff. And I think that's good. I think alternating opinions, different experiences are great. And so when you have the IT side who their minds think a little bit differently sometimes, and they have different viewpoints, makes, in my opinion, it can make for a contentious relationship at times. But I also think it serves, as far as the security realm, it serves a much broader circle or circumference. If you just do like physical security, that's not very good. Oh, I can't do that sign either. A really small circle, so if this is just your IT and this is your physical guy, where the camera's not really doing, I didn't really think this out very well. But to make them bigger, man, you got a much bigger circle, a much bigger, a wider path where you can influence a lot more. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were a teams guy, so you understand the importance of having more than one opinion, one thought process going into a planning. I mean, if on the team, if you just,
the only opinion that really mattered was mine. But yes, you're right.
Yeah, okay.
I'm totally kidding.
I'll check with your teammates and see how they what they say about that. But I mean, you're going for a plan, and you only have, let's say it's just you're thinking one thing and everything makes sense in your head. I mean, hell, we talk about it all the time. It makes sense in my head, and you bring it up. Well, I don't understand this. And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. Or I explained to you, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So it's good to have that open dialogue and kind of the wall to bounce ideas off each other. And that's, I think, in anything, not just convergence, but is important in security convergence, because you're trying to mitigate those threats.
I can tell you, I don't think it's any different in the military, probably law enforcement. I was never in law enforcement. And this is a big assumption on my part, but in corporate America, everyone pitches their plan, their good idea. And at the end of the day, what I've always seen, especially on the teams, was we never went with one idea versus another idea. It was always a convergence of ideas, of plans. That's why I'm really big into convergence, because it brings everyone together at the table, different insights, again, different viewpoints. And what I like to I call it the black swan event. You always want to prepare for that black swan event of that one thing that most of us aren't thinking of. And I think when you have different people with different backgrounds, different experiences, that's how you can help prevent events like that from happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I remember,
or respond to them better if they do happen.
Yeah, I think back to when I was doing my SWAT, SWAT operation plans. I was a team leader at the time, and I had another guy who was an officer. We had two team leaders, and he put his plan together. I put my plan together. We talk about it as we present it to the commander, and then we kind of go through there and work a plan out that way. It's not just my plan or his plan. It was like our plan, right? So I think that's important, to bounce ideas and talk to each other and work it out and kind of map it out. And it's the same with this. Cyber security guy might not have the same knowledge and experience as physical, and vice versa. So it's good to have that camaraderie, I guess, and conversation together.
And I think, look at, when you're talking security in general, everyone wants to talk about access control and cameras. I would say those are the two most common thing that people talk about when I'm dealing with clients. Two very good things, two very important subjects. If you look at the way technology, especially in the security industry, is moving towards, and I'm excited for GSX conference here next month at the end of September to see what
if we get to go.
Yeah.
They don't close it down.
But seeing the new technology that's coming out, right? I get Security Magazine every month and look at it.
Yep.
There's some phenomenal technology coming out there that helps with a physical security guide, guys or gals, jobs. You it's a lot of it is technology based, cyber
Yep.
based. So you need that IT guy. And so that's why I think the importance of convergence is getting more and more important today, because if you're just a physical security guy, I think you're doing a disservice to your client. If you're just a cybersecurity guy, you're doing a disservice to your client, because they're so molded together. You look at access readers, they're all tied into servers. Your cameras are, I don't care if you're using Wi-Fi, Cat 5 cable or Cat 6 cable or fiber optics, where you're using a microwave to push that out. It's all technology based. And so in my opinion, being a good physical security guy, you need to understand some of the cyber realm. You don't have to be an expert in the cyber, but you have to understand it. And being a good cybersecurity guy should understand some of the physical stuff. And I already mentioned access control. We've talked about cameras. You made a good point as we were talking about the podcast of HVAC systems. You look at a lot of your home and even corporate HVAC systems now, they're all tied. You can connect them to the internet.
More and more places are doing the Internet of Things. I mean, you got smart TVs, smart thermostats, smart refrigerators that send you pictures when your milk's out, and they're even having now. So a lot of the your sprinkler systems you can control with Wi-Fi. Generac, I was looking at Generac generators. They have it now to where you can turn it on or control it with your Wi-Fi from a button on your phone. I mean, everything's going to that Internet of Things.
I have a Chevy Tahoe. I can do everything through my phone. I mean, I was gone in Tahoe. Was that 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
I got an alert on my phone that the right front tire was low. Called my wife, like, hey, do you have a flat tire? What are you talking about? I'm like, I just got an alert on my phone saying the right front tire is low. Nope. But that's, again, you can choose to participate in it. You can choose not to participate in it. It's how much risk you're willing to put, how much information you're willing to put out there. So,
but as a business, in order to compete, you essentially need to have this technology.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at Freedom Consulting, you look at the Coffee Squad podcast, right? We have social media pages. We have internet pages, we have portals. And so, again, it goes into what is your security plan? How is that security plan built around? What does the cyber and IT guys think as far as backups, as far as Internet of Things are going? And then was a physical guy, what are you doing at your home if you're working from a home office to secure it? What are you doing at an office building to secure it? And then when you travel, what are you doing? So, we're not just, when we talk of convergence, it's not just one thing or a single thing. It's a huge, broad, generalized subject. And so many aspects need to be taken into account.
So what would you say are some of maybe the benefits of it, right? What are some of the benefits of doing it? I mean, we've been talking about, protection. What are some of the other benefits of converging the two together? And actually, it should be three, I think, because you want to talk about your business continuity person as well, the recovery aspect of it. You want that should be part of your convergence planning as well, I think.
So when I look at a convergence team, I look at the physical guy, I look at the cyber guy, I look at human resources, I look at legal, and I'm missing one here.
Maybe public affairs or
public affairs definitely is part of it. So I look at like a crisis action team or crisis management team. They should all be part of your convergence team, because whatever your industry you're in, your specialties of each one of those groups should be part of that. Your operations guy, huge. A lot of security, whether it's cyber or physical, a lot of people I've seen don't want to talk to the operations guy. So they can implement all these policies and these changes to policies, or these, what I call the good idea fairies out there. And some of them are very meaningful. And I've been one of those guys. But then you talk to the operations guy and you look at how's that going to impact their operations. When you're dealing with, let's say, a chemical company or a gas company where production is, tens of millions of dollars a day, and you stifle a reactor or you shut it down or you impede part of that process, what's the second and third order effects of that consequence of that process that you're now changing? I learned this years ago working with an operations guy, like, well, if we do that, then this is going to slow this down in the chain reaction. And now that's going to cost tens of millions of dollars at the end of the year. So then we talk about risk versus reward. So So getting that team together, whatever that team looks like. But I definitely recommend HR, legal, operations, physical, and cyber at a minimum. And then whatever your specialty is as a company, put those people on. And I also think what that does is there's a reduction in duplication.
Yep.
And so
that should save time and money.
100%. So I can tell you one client we had international client, thousands of employees, multiple plants all over the globe, but no one was talking to the other person. So you had your health and safety guy doing his own thing. You had your cyber guy doing another thing, and you had someone who wasn't really a physical security manager doing what they thought was best, and they usually had another job. They all had different vendors for the exact same thing, and no one was talking to each other. So they're spending a ton of money on security instead of talking and getting together and having that team. So I think duplication is definitely a huge benefit, not only in the processes, the technology or software or tools, we'll say, but then also personnel as well. So I think duplication is a big thing.
I think, and by realigning and it's gonna, like you said, it reduces on duplication, not only for your time, but it improves your time and your money, and it should increase your efficiency because once the team starts working together, they get in the flow, then everything should run. Hopefully, should run smooth. Not everything runs smooth, but everything. I mean, and you should have that circle, and you should have one person that's in charge of everything. So you have that single point of contact for the flow of information to your senior leadership. So instead of having one or two or three people from each department going up to the senior leadership, those three people brief the one guy and that one or girl and that one person goes to your senior leadership.
Yep. I also think resources, right? I kind of mentioned that a little bit ago, but the resources, it can help you reach your goals a little bit faster and allocate those resources as a team when they prioritize everything. And look, the cyber guy is going to say, hey, I need X amount of dollars for cybersecurity. The physical guy is going to say, I need X amount of dollars for physical security. They're both valid, but they can prioritize, okay, hey, what's the biggest threat? What's the risk reward again? And how do we manage that properly and do a budget? And then, one thing I didn't mention was information sharing. That information sharing is so vital.
Oh yeah.
Where
everyone.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, once you get your team together, that information sharing, and you can war game it, and that's how you can determine which is going to be the best route to take to protect your asset.
Yeah.
Or assets.
And I think with information sharing too, a great piece of advice I got in my younger days is don't take it personally, right? It's ideas you're throwing around. It's good to be passionate. Passion's a good and a bad thing. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So when you're over passionate, you can't hear and listen to others because you just want to defend that position. And so be passionate about it, but be passionate in a way that you can listen to others and listen to different ideas. And besides your own or standing up for your, hey, my team, look at this as a group effort. Besides just your, I guess a single viewpoint.
Well, I think another thing that should probably help eliminate is that turf war mentality. When you have different divisions within the same company, I'm looking out for my team. I'm looking out for this is my problem. This is my money or whatever. When you have that convergence where everything's kind of interloping and overlapping and everything's together, it's no longer me, it's we. And I think that would help kind of eliminate that turf war mentality of, like, you take of an access control. If there's something going on with access control and it's a card reader, whose turf is, the security guy, my physical guy might say, well, that's mine. The IT guy said, no, that's mine. You converge it together. It's ours now.
I like that 100%. It's you're putting the security as one team. And so all great successes, the team shares. All failures, the team shares, whether that's physical or cyber, the team is sharing that. So I think that's a great point. So,
And like you said, the silos of information, you don't have the cone of silence. You don't have, you have people talking to each other. That's important as well. But I think you also have, you talked about a little bit, your improved alignment of business and security goals. When you're as a team, it's like you said, the successes are together, the failures are together. It makes everybody want to work better for the business, and the goals should be a unison goal, a one team goal.
Yeah. So I like to look at it as like a Venn diagram, go back to my circles, and I'm not going to do it again because I didn't look like I didn't look very well coordinated last time I did it. But if you had two circles that overlapped, that's the convergence that I see in security. So, or three circles. So, and the hardest part is starting it. That's with anything in life. Having that vision, understanding what that vision is, and how can that benefit you as an employer or a client if you're a security consultant.
Well, information sharing is so important. I mean, even in different agencies, I remember when I first started out in law enforcement, you didn't really have those. It was more, disorganized crime or disorganized law enforcement versus organized crime. As the things start, as we've started progressing, especially after 9/11, you kind of have those information centers, those task force centers where you have one person from each, the DEA, ATF, IRS, even, they're all working out of the same office on the same type task force where everybody's kind of sharing the information they can and talking back and forth so they can kind of share what they're seeing and what they're hearing. And I think that's important in security.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the JTTF does a pretty good job of that. The Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Yep.
So, and I can say, the importance of it, of just information sharing. I always hated it. We used to say on the teams, like, hey, don't play I got a secret. If you see something and you think it's important, it could be the dumbest thing ever, but at least you said it and you got the information out there, what you think. If you don't say it and it's bad, or it could be out really good, but you don't say anything, you don't act on it, what are you missing? Or what are you jeopardizing? So that's what I like about the team mentality and the convergence. And that's why I really, really think convergence is super important. So, I've enjoyed this conversation today.
Well, so real quick, before we go, what are some, how can we merge the physical side? Can't talk.
Say that.
How can we merge physical and cybersecurity to give your business the most comprehensive security? How do we get them to do it? Do you have any tips or tricks or?
So I think that starts at senior leadership. I think letting, a lot of our clients are big clients. They report to a board. And so letting that CEO and that C-suite understand the importance of convergence is first and foremost. And then if you can get them to understand it, then they can go to the board.
Yeah.
And if you can explain it well enough to them and they can explain it to the board well enough, hopefully they see the importance of that. And look, a lot of board members have a variety of backgrounds. And so understanding, getting the senior leadership to get involved, hire a security consultant. I think that's a good first step. And that security consultant, if you're working with the IT and the physical security manager, asking them what their goals are. What do they see? What issues do they see that they've been asking for a budget or increasing this or that, and help present that information to the board. Because if you have Joe Blow going every day to the CEO or the vice president of operations saying, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z, and he's saying it until he's blue in the face and doesn't get it, either he's not presenting it well, he's not making his case well, or that C-suite executive just isn't seeing his vision. And so sometimes what a security consultant can do is go in there and shape that picture, show them the pros and the cons of doing business as usual. So I think that's one thing,
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that a lot of companies don't take security as a high priority like they should. It's more of an afterthought. It's more of a reactive than a proactive type result. I like, and this is kind of a rudimentary type example of it, but if your maintenance man comes up and says, hey man, I got a hole in my roof, you're not going to send the maintenance man up there to put some duct tape on it. You're going to hire a professional roofing company to fix it, right? It's the same thing with your security. If your security guy, your CSO, CIO, whatever is coming with, hey man, we have some gaps in our security. You should hire an actual security company to come in, a physical or an assessment company like Freedom to come in and do an assessment so they can guide you the proper way to do it.
Absolutely. Look, it costs money. Security is not cheap. When you're replacing, fiber optic cable, running that under the ground, buying the cable, running it, and getting the permits to do that, depending on how large it is. And then when you look at access readers, cameras, anything else, paying that consultant to do an assessment and tell you where to help place the stuff and how to be more efficient in what you're doing. It's not cheap. Security is not cheap. And at the end of the day, like you said, most companies are reactive. Excuse me. Exxon, I think, does a really good job. And a lot of your oil and gas companies do a good job because they've seen in the past what's happened when they don't have good security. If you look at Africa back in the 70s, when oil executives were getting kidnapped over there, or oil workers, they really stepped up their game. And so until something bad happens or potentially bad could have happened, a lot of companies they don't see a return on their investment.
Yep.
However, with technology today, with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever platform you want to do, I mean, this phone is a really powerful tool. And so if something bad happens, your workers are taking videos. And they're going to take a video. Mm-hmm. Your contractors are going to take a video. The public's going to take a video. The media is going to take a video. And so if you don't have your ducks lined up in a row and are compliant, the liability is so huge today. And so that's why I think convergence is huge. You can't say, well, I didn't know, or that was never told to me, or that at that point, if something bad happens, now you're reacting. And if you don't have a plan, if you're not working together, you haven't planned for that black swan event, you don't have that crisis management team together where your cybersecurity guy and your physical security guy, your lawyers and your HR department and everyone operations aren't sitting there together going over worst case scenarios, not the what ifs, but the worst case scenarios that actually apply to them, and understanding the threats that are constantly changing out there. You're already behind the power curve. You're behind the 8 ball. And that's when the lawsuits come, especially if you're a publicly traded company. You can watch stocks literally dip huge when stuff comes out, negative media. So, yeah. So.
And not only are you not talking about just losing your assets in the security, I mean, that business continuity, your loss of production and income from it being down from your attack or whatever. I mean, that's essentially why Colonial paid it. They paid it off because they didn't want to shut down and try to figure out what was going on for who knows how long. They just went ahead and paid it and then try to find the gap afterwards. So.
Exactly. And then the court of law is one thing, but the public court of law,
court of opinion,
court of opinion, in my opinion, today means almost more than court of law sometimes. I think PG&E and SMUD out in California, they've been charged with, I can't remember how many counts of manslaughter for the fires a few years ago out in California. But guess what? A lot of these fires in California, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the fires out in California are caused due to faulty equipment, faulty power lines, and this and that. That black eye doesn't sit well. Doesn't sit well with investors. Doesn't sit well with customers. Doesn't sit well with the public. So no one wants a target on their back. So
I mean, we're a little seasoned, but you hear Exxon, you still think of Exxon Valdez. That's something that still is fresh in my mind. I know it's a little more, we're a little more seasoned than some of our other people out there, but it's something that I still remember when I hear Exxon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I remember watching the images of
the animals
still there in Alaska and washing them, and then you see Dawn. Every once in a while I'll see an advertisement of Dawn dish soap, a drop in a bucket as they're watching a duck or another type of animal. So look, there's risk out there. How do you mitigate it the best? And in my opinion, the best way to mitigate risk is having a team, which is convergence.
Yep. All right, man. I think it was a good conversation. Anything you want to talk about before we go?
No, I think it's a good one, man. So
all right.
I appreciate it.
All right. I just want to say thanks for checking us out. Go ahead and go to coffeesquadpodcast.com. You can get access all our content on there. Go to youtube.com and you can search the Coffee Squad podcast and you can find all of our videos over there. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment. We always like to hear from you guys. We appreciate it, and we will catch you next week.
Have a good one.